We had a fabulous day yesterday
Mm-hmm.
and with a lot of great presenters and a lot of great interaction. And without further ado, that man standing in front of the camera is attorney Sean Scott.
Ha!
Hey, Sean.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to technology.
Yes, welcome to technology. You know, we always have a little glitches, but it always works out in the end.
You know, Linda, I thought this was going to be easy. So, I got here an hour early for the office. I was like, just in case there's any glitches. And literally 1 second ago, I figured it out.
Yeah. We're here. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sean.
All right, great. Well, welcome, everybody. We're going to talk a little bit about some fun things today. Maybe not as fun as we'd like them to be. So the title of the presentation was, is this even legal? And this is something I get a lot from my clients. When I'm talking with them, helping them plan for long-term care, helping them plan on how to pay for the cost of long-term care, either in their house, in their home, for example, home care, or an assisted living facility, or even in a skilled nursing facility. And as you get into that situation, it can be very, very expensive. So then I tell them, well, there's ways of doing this. There's options with Medicaid, for example, that can pay for all the cost of that care. And then the client will typically say, well, gosh, I have too much money or I make too much income. And I'm like, no, that's not going to hurt us. We're going to be able to work with all of that. And I tell them that what we're going to do. And they look at me and they say, is this legal? Can you really do this? And the answer is yes, you can. So let's set up the problem a little bit, shall we? So here you are, you're a caregiver, you're providing care for your person. You're going through the process. We don't know where you're at on the journey necessarily, but you can see that there's going to come a day where you are not going to be able to provide all the care that that person needs. So in those circumstances, you're going to need home care, you're going to need assisted living care, or obviously sometimes in many cases, long-term care in a nursing home. And you start shopping around and you look at what your options are and how can you get that care. And then you find out that, wow, home care is pretty expensive. Assisted living care, $3,500 up to $7,000 a month for that care, especially in a memory kind of a setting. And then you get to the nursing home, and that's where you really lose your mind, because now we're looking at $10,000 to $12,000 a month for the cost of that care. And you kind of scratch your head and you say, well, hey, how am I going to pay for that? I don't have that much money. And if you have some money in the bank, you're going to pretty much blow through that as quickly as possible. When looking at how big of a problem you have, take the amount of money, for example, that you have in your life savings, in your brokerage account, savings account, checking account, add all that up, and then divide by 10,000. And that should give you how long it's going to last, how many months you're going to have until you run out of money.
So if you didn't feel sick before, you feel sick then.
No kidding, right? If your brain wasn't about to explode at that point in time, it kind of goes splat. And this is a real problem. Without question, all seriousness, it's a huge problem. Not only do you have all of the issues surrounding just being a caregiver and providing that care and dealing with that day-to-day issue, but now you're facing financial ruin because of the cost of this care. So that's when we show up and we're like, okay, how do we pay for that? And we look at some options. So generally speaking, your options are, you can look at Medicaid. That's a huge issue. There's possibility for VA, Veterans Benefits. And in some communities in Florida, there's an option for something called PACE. PACE is not throughout the entire state. There's a select handful of communities. I can't tell you what they are off the top of my head. I always have to look them up. And the issue with PACE is that more areas are coming online routinely. For example, we think Hillsborough County is going to be coming online, hopefully by the end of this year for sure. We had expected it to be online sooner, but there's some delays apparently. But in Pinellas County, where I'm at right now, PACE is a wonderful option, and it can do a lot of things that Medicaid can't. So we'll talk briefly about that as well. But let's jump on Medicaid for a second, because that's one of the big things. For the last 33 years, what I've done is I've helped clients access Medicaid to pay for the cost of that care, home care, assisted living care, or nursing home care. Qualifying for Medicaid is kind of a little bit tricky. In the Medicaid world, Medicaid is going to do an assessment, or basically they're going to look at your situation. And in order to determine your eligibility, they're going to look at what you get and what you've got. What you get, well, that's your income that's coming in on a monthly basis. Florida has a cap on how much income that you can have. And then Florida also looks at what you've got, which are your assets. How much stuff do you have? And there's some numbers there that are important. So let's just take a half a second and look at the income side of things first. Florida is what's known as an income cap state. We cap or we limit the amount of income that you can have in order to be eligible for benefits. That cap, that amount changes on a yearly basis. It's kind of indexed with the whole COLA thing, which means that when your Social Security goes up, well, your income cap in Florida goes up as well. So what is that cap? Well, the cap in this year, 2023, is $2,742 of gross income per month. What that means is the person that's applying for Medicaid benefits has to have $2,742 of income or less in order to qualify for these Medicaid benefits. Quick little footnote here, it's gross income. That means it's not what you actually put in your bank, but what they give you prior to taking out any deductions. That's kind of a big deal because when you gross your check back up what it actually is before they take out that stuff, that could put you over that magic $2,742 amount. If you're dealing with a husband and wife scenario and you're looking at the couple, couples have a tendency to combine their incomes together so that when you ask them what's your income, it's his and hers together. But for Medicaid purposes, Medicaid is only looking at the income of the person who's applying for the benefit. So if the husband's in the facility, in the nursing home, we're applying for him, it's his income that's going to be the one we're looking at, not combined together. So 2,742, very much a hard line. If you're $1 over that number, you're not eligible for Medicaid benefits to help pay for this cost of care. So that's a problem. Now, is there a solution to that problem? Well, there is, okay, and it's the solution is something called a qualified income trust, or what we just call it for short, just an income trust. What is that? Well, it's actually pretty simple. What happens is you sign this document called an income trust agreement, and then you go down to your bank and you open a checking account in the name of that trust. It's just a checking account. In order to get your income below this magic 2,742 number, you have to deposit into that income trust enough money that reduces your income below that amount. So keeping math simple, because I like simple math. Let's say a guy, an applicant here, he has $2,743. That's $1 over the income cap. He's not eligible for benefits because he has too much income. But if he signs a trust agreement, opens a checking account at the local bank, and puts $1 into that checking account every month, then his income will be reduced for Medicaid eligibility purposes to $2,742, which is the magic number, that or lower. And now he can trigger eligibility on the income test. So simply stated, for every dollar you put into that trust is $1 you can subtract from what your income is. And what that means in practical sense is it doesn't really matter what your income is anymore in Florida. If you're above the cap amount, you use the income trust, you reduce your income below the cap, and you trigger eligibility. Now, if your brain's starting to wobble a little bit here, it should, because this really doesn't make any sense. It's kind of crazy because the way I discuss it with my clients is it's like you're going down the highway and there's a speed limit sign that says 65 miles an hour. That's the law. 65 miles an hour is the law. But in the world of Medicaid, there's another sign right behind the 65-mile-an-hour sign that says basically go as fast as you want. So you have a law and then you have another law that gets around the first law. It's mind-blowing. Why do we have this income cap in Florida? That's a good question. I don't really know. It kind of doesn't really serve a purpose that I can see, but yet we have it. And if you run into the problem, thank goodness there's a solution to fix that problem. All right, so income, big deal with a solution. A little bit more about income though, while we're going down this trail. When a person goes into a nursing home or an assisted living facility, for example, that person has an obligation to pay part of their own way. Now, that is called a patient responsibility in the world of Medicaid. So, for example, let's say a gentleman, he makes $2,500 a month of income. He's below the income cap. All the other issues regarding eligibility are okay, assuming we'll get to some of those in a minute. he qualifies for Medicaid, he's on Medicaid, he's in the nursing home. Medicaid's going to pay that nursing home bill for him, but he has an obligation to pay his income, basically all of his income, to the nursing home on a monthly basis, and Medicaid comes in and makes up the difference for all intents and purposes, which I think is a pretty good deal. I mean, that's basically solving the problem. It's kind of a silver bullet solution, really awesome. The guy that's in the nursing home does get to keep $130 a month out of his check. They call that a personal needs allowance, cookie money, cigarette money, haircut money, whatever you want to call it. So that's his kind of $130 to do with what he wants. But basically, the rest of his income goes to nursing. Then we have a situation where, let's say he's not single. Let's say he's married, and his wife, who lives in the community, lives outside of the nursing home. Together, when they were living, they had two incomes. And now all of a sudden, if he goes into the nursing home, all of his income goes away because it's going to the nursing. And that leaves her kind of high and dry. She's now trying to make do on one single income. And a lot of times it may be a lot less than what his was for just reasons. And how is she going to do that? How is she going to make it? And interestingly enough, Medicaid actually recognizes this as an issue. And they allow us to do something, allow the applicant to do something called diverting money over to the spouse. We call it a spousal diversion. So instead of all the money going into the nursing home, all the income of the husband in this case going into the nursing home, in many cases you can divert some, and even in some circumstances, all of his income to her, making his patient responsibility zero. So he ends up paying nothing. Medicaid pays the rest of all of it, and all of his income now is going over to help support his spouse in the community. So it works pretty good, I think, for the most cases. If the spouse is in a situation, the one that's living in the community, if she's making $5,000 a month, for example, for whatever, all of her different sources, she's probably not going to be entitled to any diversion of his income. There's a formula that Medicaid applies. They're looking at what her income is, what her housing expenses are, and then they're going to raise her up to a certain minimum level. And if her expenses for her housing are excessive or more, then they're going to give her more money to help pay for the cost of those they call shelter expenses or her housing expenses. So on the income side, summary, Medicaid looks at what your income is in Florida. There's a cap, 2742. You have to be at or below that cap to be eligible. If you're above that cap, you can use an income trust to fix the problem. If you're in a nursing or assisted living setting, you have a patient responsibility. That means most of your income is going to go to the facility on a monthly basis. If you're married, some of it may be diverted over to your spouse. Very good. The only problem that we run into really with income trusts in the practice is dealing with or finding somebody that can actually sign that trust agreement. That's a big deal. The law says there's only a handful of people that can sign it. The person that's the applicant, he can sign it. The applicant's spouse can sign it. His guardian can sign it. And in some cases, his power of attorney person can sign that income trust. Now, the reality of this is that a lot of times the applicant is not in any shape to sign this agreement because of cognitive issues or he's really sick, so he can't sign. If his spouse is not around, either he doesn't have one or she's passed before him, then she's out. Most of my clients don't have a guardianship, so that's out. So in most cases, when we're dealing with the situation, we're looking to the power of attorney to sign the income trust. Is that a problem? Well, actually it is, believe it or not. What we do when we look, we want this guy, this power of attorney person, to be able to sign the agreement, but a lot of times they can't. Well, why can't they? And here's where it just gets really super frustrating, is when the client's son or daughter or friend or brother or whoever is coming in, whoever that person is, they show up and they're like, okay, we have too much income. We're going to do an income trust. Let me see your power of attorney. If the power of attorney doesn't explicitly state that they have the ability to create a trust for their person, in other words, it says you have the ability to create a trust on behalf of the principal, the person signing the power of attorney, then you can't sign it. And it gets real tricky. For example, I've seen power of attorneys that say, that your person has the ability to sign revocable trusts on your behalf. That's good, right? No, because this income trust is actually an irrevocable trust. Your person can only sign revocable trusts. And to make it even more frustrating is that under the new current Florida statute regarding powers of attorney, there's a requirement that the ability to create a trust, that power that you're trying to give to your backup person, has to be initialed by the person signing the power of attorney. If they haven't initialed that paragraph that grants the authority to create a trust, under Florida statutes, that authority is not given. So you can have the words in there, but if that paragraph is not initialed, then that authority is not granted to your person, and we're stuck again. So when I talk about income trusts and power of attorneys, it's kind of a moment where you should look at your documents and see, does it have a provision that allows your backup person to create an income trust? And if that's done in Florida, that power of attorney, is that paragraph initial? So get your documents out and check. If it doesn't have that power, or if it's not initialed, you need to redo that document. It's just black and white. There's no gray area in that situation. If for whatever reason you have a flawed document and you can't fix it because the ship has kind of sailed, then the answer to that is to go to guardianship court and get a guardian. That guardianship process could cost $3,000, $5,000, $8,000 in attorney's fees, depending on circumstances. It can take maybe a couple of months. And while you're waiting around trying to get this guardianship approved, you're still paying that $10,000 a month bill in the nursing home. So not having this power of attorney done correctly actually translates into a real big financial mess. So check your documents. All right, let's switch gears. We talked about income and Medicaid and how that works. Let's talk a little bit about your assets. Medicaid is an interesting program. It was created in the late 1960s under President Johnson's administration. Johnson at the time was trying to get health care for everybody in the country. That did not fly, did not get passed, did not go over well, apparently. But what he was able to salvage from that effort was he got health care for old people. We call that Medicare. And then he was able to get health care for poor people, which was called Medicaid. Okay, so if you think that you have to be poor in order to qualify for Medicaid, there's some reasons why you would think that, because of the origin story of how Medicaid came into being. All right, so Medicaid. Why do we talk about Medicaid in nursing homes? This is an interesting situation. I think I kind of see in my brain when they're looking and they're creating these two programs in the late 60s and they're figuring out coverages, and they get up to this issue of, okay, nursing home care. Should we put it in the old people's health insurance or put it in the poor people's health care? And I don't know why, but they kind of threw it in the poor people's health care, which is Medicaid. That's really the only legitimate coverage that we have in this country for paying for the cost of a long-term care stay in a nursing home. Medicare will pay maybe 100 days at best. Once 100 days is used, Medicare is out of the picture. So what are you going to do for the rest of the problem? Now, this is why we have to turn to Medicaid. So Medicaid has its origin story back in the day on having little or no money. That changed dramatically in 1988. The federal government came in and tweaked some of the asset eligibility numbers. And when they did this, they made it a little bit more generous, so to speak, as to how much money you could have to qualify for these benefits. So how much can you have? Well, there's two different asset numbers. Florida has two different asset limits or caps. You have to be below that cap, obviously, in order to be eligible for benefits. If you're married, you're allowed to have approximately $150,000 in countable assets. If you have 150 or less, then you meet the asset eligibility target, and 150 less of countable assets. So every time I use the word countable, I need to make a point here and say there's a couple big non-countable assets that are not part of that number. For example, your house is not counted when determining eligibility. Your primary residence, the place that you live. Even if you're not living there because you're in a nursing home or an assisted living facility, that primary residence, that value is not part of the $150,000 that you're allowed to have. Also, your car is not counted as an asset. So that's good. And those are typically our two biggest assets that we have. Medicaid basically then is going to look at everything else you own. your checking account, your stocks and bonds, your CDs, your annuities, your IRAs, everything that you own. And you're going to have to tell them about how much that stuff is. And if you're at 150,000 or less, then that person's going to be eligible for benefits because they passed the test. If you are above that line and you have more than the 150,000 bucks, then that's where we're going to get involved and assist you in making sure that you can pass that eligibility test. There's multiple different things that can be done under the law where these assets can be moved in a way that Medicaid is not mad about. We can change their characteristics, for example, so that now they're going to shift from being counted to not being counted, or we can just blatantly take an asset and turn it into a non-countable asset. Not my favorite strategy necessarily, but for example, let's say you don't have a car, or your car is old, it's older than 7 years, and it's just, you want to replace it. So going out and taking money out of your bank account and buying a car is converting your assets from counted to not counted because the car is not a countable asset. I'm definitely not telling you to go out and buy a car to get eligible for Medicaid, but it's just an example of how you can shift things around in order to meet these eligibility requirements. So assets, a big deal, 150,000 if you're a married couple. What happens if you're not married, or you're widowed, your spouse has died, or you're not married, or you're divorced, you're single? What's your asset eligibility target there? Well, bad news. Okay. If you're a single person applying for Medicaid to pay for the cost of care, your asset eligibility number is $2,000. That's $2,000 in assets. What does that mean in a real world sense? Well, what that means in a real world sense is that you're probably not going to be eligible for Medicaid at the moment, because you more than likely have more than $2,000 in assets. So again, practically, if you're married, there's a chance that you're eligible on the asset side. If you're single, pretty much not going to be eligible, at least in the beginning. And again, that's where somebody like me comes into play. Somebody that works in this thing called elder law and public benefit law, that can interpret what the rules say and then work within what the law says that you can do in order to meet these eligibility targets. And there's a lot of different techniques that are available under the rules. One of the techniques I think that's very interesting, Medicaid, by the way, didn't like this technique. It basically allows you to move money to your family or somebody else by paying it to them. This payment strategy allows you to move your funds in exchange for paying for them to help you do things for yourself. This is pretty wild in many ways. It's very effective. We use it routinely to move these assets in order to protect them. Now, Medicaid was not very happy about this. They actually litigated this issue, went to court, and through multiple levels, including an appeal. And at the end of the day, the court system said, no, Medicaid, you have to allow people to be able to pay for things like care. You can't differentiate in who you're paying, whether it's a family member or a friend or an agency, for example. You can't say that you can't pay your son to help you or pay your daughter to help you, but you can pay a nursing agency. You can't do that. So a very, very interesting strategy. It has some little things that you got to be aware of for sure, but it's very effective. Okay. So that's one thing. There's a bunch of other options as well in this. The purpose of today is not to go and drill down to all of those techniques. It's kind of beyond the scope of what we have to talk about and the time we have to talk about. But the cool thing about it is that there's a solution, in my opinion, basically for every client. In 33 years of doing this, I've helped thousands and thousands of people qualify for Medicaid benefits. There's never been a case, not one, where we were not able to fix the problem. So take that to heart.
John,
this problem is fixable. So,
John, I have some questions here.
Yes, ma'am. I love questions. You know that.
I know that. And one person said, a guy in my town advertises that he can file for Medicaid for you. Can he do that? Do I have to go to an attorney? And what's the difference?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. Yeah. So, back in the day, barbers used to be people that took care of your medical problems. So this is kind of akin to, I know I can go to the surgeon to have this problem taken care of, but why can't I just go and have the barber do it? And so what my point obviously is that, I've been doing this for 33 years. I keep up on the law on a routine basis. I have to maintain my continuing legal education. I'm routinely going to courses to fine tune my knowledge base. I have ethical obligations under the Florida bar that make sure that I don't do anything weird or bad. I have insurance that if I do make a mistake that my client can get whole and recovered. Okay, who's this guy that's going to do this application for you? And what kind of experience does he have? And what kind of recourse do you have if he screws up? And on top of that, to put a huge point on this, the Florida Supreme Court has said that doing that kind of thing where you're helping somebody qualify for these benefits is deemed to be the unlicensed practice of law if you're not a lawyer. So that person that's not a lawyer is very limited as to what they can do. They basically can fill out the application for you, but they can't interpret the law and tell you how to become eligible.
Okay.
And if they do, they're violating the law. That's a crime. And that's a crime for a reason, because the state of Florida has said, the Supreme Court has said, this is practicing law. This is not just helping you fill out a form. So
right.
I hope I answered that question.
So someone
this makes me crazy. So
someone just said in the chat room, just go to the lawyer, because if you
Just
put a
go to-
dot in the wrong place, you're in big trouble.
why wouldn't you want to come? I'm going to fix this problem, and I do it every time. And I've been
Right.
trained to do this. All right, you want to go to
Right.
the barber to do it?
Yeah.
I don't get it. So, and
Okay.
I'm a nice guy.
Yeah. All right, next question. The income trust paragraph needs to be initiated by whom?
Okay, who does the income trust paragraph and the power of attorney need to be initialed by? Okay, that's a great question. So when you have a power of attorney, let's say I'm going to sign my power of attorney that's going to make my daughter my backup person, right? In order, if I can't do my thing because I've lost my mind, my daughter can step in and fill my shoes to be me. So I'm signing my power of attorney, giving her all this power to do this. Inside that document, there's a paragraph that says, my power of attorney has the ability to create a trust on my behalf, including a qualified income trust to apply for Medicaid benefits. That paragraph has to be initialed by me, because I'm the person granting the authority. I have to sign that paragraph.
Okay.
And that's Florida statute. I mean, that's an absolute. If that thing's not initialed, my daughter can't sign an income trust for me.
Okay. Next question. How different are the laws from state to state?
Oh, God, we have good questions today. That's a great question. Basically, there are 50 different Medicaid laws in this country.
Oh.
Every state's Medicaid law is different, and it can be radically different. So much so that what I do here to help my clients qualify for these benefits would disqualify them in another state. So it's not portable. If you're eligible in Florida, you're not necessarily going to be eligible in Georgia or Michigan or New York or any other state. It's state by state determination. Why is that? Why? Because Medicare is not state by state, right? Medicare is just one federal program. It's the same in every state in the country.
Right.
Why isn't Medicaid the same? Well, here's why. Because Medicaid is a joint state and federal program. Basically, they both have money in the program. So the state's contributing money, the federal government's contributing money. So there's this general federalness where it's similar from state to state. But then the states, because they have skin in the game, so to speak, have the ability to pick and choose within these guidelines on how they're going to implement their program. Wow, it's crazy. It is definitely not the way it should be. It is the way it is, however. And that's why when I work with my clients in Florida, I can't fix your problem in another state. I can only fix it in Florida because that's the only law, Medicaid law I know, at least that I know well.
All right, so her next question is, so how do I find one of you in my state?
Excellent question. So there is an organization, it's called the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. It's NAELA for short, NAELA. I think it's .org or .com. I don't know what the dot is on it. Just Google it. And on their website, there's an experience registry that you can go in and kind of put your zip code in and under your town, and then it'll give you a list of people that are members of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. Does that necessarily mean that they are an elder law attorney or that they're a good elder law attorney? No, but at least it's narrowing your pool to, depending on your location, at least the people that purport to practice in this area. So that's a good question. NAELA, NAELA, is the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys.
She said, I think I'm going to ask my friends at the golf club. They probably know an attorney.
Well, that's actually, I mean, it sounds kind of outrageous, but it's
Really?
actually not necessarily outrageous, because a lot of times your friends may have run into this problem. They may have had this problem themselves.
Right.
And they may have used somebody and vetted them already that solved this problem. That's not a bad way to do it. At least it's one of the good options.
Yeah.
So if you're playing golf and one of my clients is your friend, and they say, well, you should go see Sean Scott.
Yeah.
So that would be a good recommendation.
All right, another question. How soon do I need to do this, and what other docs do I need? So like, at what age should I be thinking about this?
That is of all the questions I get asked when I'm presenting on the situation and on the conferences and seminars and talks that I give, that is the best question that can be asked. A lot of the other ones are mechanical in nature, how do you do this? That's kind of mechanics of why would you do this? I think that's kind of obvious why you would take action in this situation. But the best question is, when do you take action? That's a good question. Here's my answer. There's generally 3 different types of clients that I work with. One group of clients are what I call my uh-oh clients. These are people that are either refused to take any action, didn't do anything, or they got surprised. On Monday they were fine. On Tuesday they had a stroke, and on Wednesday they're in the nursing home.
Right.
Well, I can't fault you for that. It's surprise, you have a problem. And the reason why they're called uh-oh clients is that, imagine this, the caretaker, the wife, whoever is not in the nursing home, she's in the kitchen, she pulls the mail out, she's looking through the envelopes, and lo and behold, there's an envelope from the nursing home. She opens that up, pulls it out, and sees, please pay us $12,000. And at that point in time is where I think she would go, uh-oh, now what do I do?
Yeah.
So the uh-oh client is kind of an emergency or in the moment, oh my gosh, this thing has just hit us, what do we do now? I think it's obvious, we see a lot of these people for many reasons. On the other end of the spectrum on the when question is I have a group of people that I call my planner clients. These are people that I like to jokingly say know what they're going to have for breakfast next month. They have the menu and their day timer and their shopping list by aisle in Publix all right there in their day timer. And they're planners, man. And sometimes when I see these people, I go, how do you do this? Right? Because it just blows my mind. There's just uber super planners. And then they look back at me and they say, well, Sean, how do you not do this? So it's just a psychology, it's just a way of thinking, and they get a lot of peace and solace by having a plan for these things. And I show them how to do it, even though they don't have an issue in the moment. And then we have the middle group. The middle group in between those 2 poles is what I refer to as my writing on the wall clients. Writing on the wall, what does that mean? Well, it's an expression basically that means that, hey, you have had notice that this issue is here. The writing is on the wall. Warning, warning, warning. Are you do or do not do, but you have an issue, take action. And the Bible story is in the book of Daniel, it talks about ignoring that writing on the wall and the consequences that come from it. Well, if you ignore the writing on the wall because you have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, that's writing on the wall, and you ignore that, you become an uh-oh client.
Yep.
I think if you have that writing on the wall and you have a heads up that this problem is manifesting in your world, you should take action now to do things. There's many options, much more options available for you. The sooner you do this, it's easier for you to do this. And also, you can take this piece of unknown how am I going to avoid losing all my assets and paying all my money to the nursing home? You can take that problem and get rid of it and not have to worry about it anymore. So if you're writing on the wall, I think you should need to take action now. We oftentimes say on the way home from your neurologist, you should probably stop by the office.
Well, two different people have asked, when do I go and get the other documents, the power of attorney and that stuff? And what are the main documents that everyone should have?
Great question. I like to keep things simple. When it comes to documents, the most important legal document that you can have in your possession is a power of attorney.
Okay.
That is 100% critical. If you don't have that, then we're off to guardianship court and things become exponentially more difficult and expensive. This piece of paper that is a power of attorney, it's not hard to get, doesn't cost you very much money, and the dividends that it pays are almost immeasurable. Here's the problem though. You can't get a power of attorney after you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
If you've lost capacity, if you can't do your thing any longer, if you're in a coma or you've gone down the dementia trail so far that you've lost capacity, you can't sign a power of attorney at that point in time. You need to do it in advance. This is a huge issue. So we have a little joke about it in the office, actually. We like to do things for free for our clients. And one of our offers is that we'll do your power of attorney at no charge. There's only one little catch, and that catch is you have to come see me the day before you lose your mind. So you can't do this after the fact. It's super important you have it in now. Let me give you, for example, when my son turned 18 years of age, I'm still his father, but I'm no longer his parent. And what that means is I could no longer make decisions on his behalf and answer questions regarding his health care or his finances or do anything because now he's an adult and independent. I lost that power that was given to me because I'm his parent. So the week that he turned 18, he got a power of attorney and a healthcare surrogate. He has no assets. He has a checking account with $100 in it, something ridiculous. Why does he need a power of attorney for? Because he's over 18 and breathing. That's why. Interesting enough, the story goes is that about a year later, he was driving down to Miami to do a show and with some friends of his. He was actually asleep in the car. It was middle of the day. They were on 95 going south. He woke up upside down in the car in the trees being cut out of the car by the paramedics.
Oh my God.
Broken neck, broken back, helicoptered to emergency room in Fort Pierce. Bad. Okay. And because of these documents, I was able to come in and make decisions on his behalf, his healthcare decisions, and also some simple financial things that he had to deal with. But without those documents, I would have been basically dead in the water. So it doesn't matter. The point here is it doesn't matter what your age is. You need to have this when? Now. And footnote to that, every 5 years, you should freshen it up and re-execute the power of attorney every 5 years or so. That's the rule of thumb.
Okay. We have a couple more questions, but people also sending in messages. Where are you and what is your phone number?
Okay, that is great. Well, I am physically located in the middle of Pinellas County. Okay, I guess the technical designation is Largo. I'm not really sure where Largo starts and ends. It's Pinellas County. I think across the street is Clearwater, and the other across the street is Pinellas Park.
Yeah, and Seminole.
yeah, Seminole. I don't know. So I don't know if that means anything, but we're literally basically by the intersection of Belcher and East Bay Drive is where our physical location is. But we take care of clients all across the state of Florida. We did this before COVID, after COVID, and well, because of COVID, we've really expanded our virtualization and our ability to take care of clients without ever physically seeing them.
Yeah.
We do things like what we're doing today, video conferencing, phone type situations. I have clients from Pensacola to Key West.
Okay.
So I take care of people all across the state. My physical location again is in Largo. My phone number, if you wanted that, is 727-539-0181. 727-539-0181. And we have a website too. Now, I'm not real excited about our website right now. We're undergoing some transitioning, so it's kind of not the best website in the world. But what we have there, it's a super easy URL, and it's flmedicaid.com. FL like Florida, Medicaid.com. Type that into your browser and you can go to our website. And one of the cool things that is there that I want to mention is that you should be able to find a link to my book. Now, I wrote about a 150-page book on Medicaid and long-term care. And it takes what we're talking about today and expands on the whole thing in much greater detail. And the cool thing about it is you can download that book for free from flmedicaid.com. It doesn't cost you anything. If you want a physical copy of the book, you can actually go onto amazon.com and buy the book for $20. Just download it for free from the website. Okay. And I think it's a really good book. I wrote it. So it's good information.
I think so too. We have another question. Please explain more about what is PACE and how do I find them?
Excellent. What is PACE? PACE is an acronym, and it stands for the Program for the All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly, PACE. It uses the same Medicaid eligibility requirements, so you actually are applying and going through the Medicaid application process to get approved for the program. So everything that we do in order to meet the income and asset eligibility numbers is the same thing that we're due if we're going to qualify you for PACE. PACE is, in my opinion, awesome. Medicaid, especially when they're looking, got to give you a little background information here. Medicaid comes in a couple of different flavors. Medicaid for assisted living care and home care, that kind of care that's being provided, is a different Medicaid program than the one that's paying for nursing home care. So at home and in assisted living, they limit the amount of people that can be on the program. The program always runs full, which means that if you want to get onto that type of Medicaid right now, you can't do it because there's no room on the program to get on. So the state of Florida, for this Medicaid for home and assisted living care, has created basically a waiting list in order to manage who gets the next available slot or position on the program. Okay, that's great. But not so great, because is it first come, first serve? How long am I going to be on this list? What's the deal with that? Well, here's the deal. Medicaid's waiting list is really a kind of an enrollment management system. And the state of Florida, assesses your situation to determine how sick you are versus all the other people that are trying to get on the program. And if you're not very sick, you're not getting picked for the program. They literally will score you on a level of 1 through 5 on how sick you are. If you're a 5, you're probably going to get on the program in 30 to 60 days as far as an invitation to participate. If you're a 4, maybe. If you're a 3, 2, or a 1, you're never getting on the program until you get sicker. That's a huge hurdle to overcome for a lot of our clients. And then in comes PACE. PACE. Wow. All right. So Medicaid's looking at the sickest person. PACE is inverted. They want to bring people onto that program when they're healthier. So as a matter of fact, PACE will not put you on the program if you're already in an assisted living facility. You're too sick to get on that program. That's not the model that they're trying to apply. You just have to be sick enough to need some help. And if you're sick enough to need some help, you can go on PACE. There's no lines, no waiting at the present time. And when it comes time to how they actually pay for care, it pays for that care better. In a Medicaid situation, in an assisted living setting, Medicaid's not paying all the bill. Medicaid's only paying about, let's say, $1,300 or so a month for that, towards the cost of that care. If you're using PACE to help in that situation, PACE is paying all of the cost of that assisted living care. Way better. Pays better, no lines, no waiting. I absolutely love PACE. They have this mentality, this like kind of culture. They're super, and this sounds weird, but aggressive and wanting to provide care. When I refer my clients to PACE, they start taking care of them before I can even get the application filed to approve them for benefits. And we've had discussions with them. I'm like, PACE, guys, come on. You're not going to get paid until I get this guy eligible, and you're moving too fast. Even if I filed the application for benefits the day I sent them to you, you still wouldn't get. They wouldn't be eligible fast enough because you're taking them, pick them up in 2 weeks.
Right.
Holy heck, it's crazy, and it's good, but it's crazy. And when I say it's crazy, I mean crazy good. So I'm a huge fan of PACE. I just love them. My clients always come back with positive reviews of what the experience is. There's only one downside to PACE, in my opinion. PACE applies something it's like a super HMO model, health maintenance organization, HMO. What I mean by that is that PACE says that in order for us to take care of you, you have to work within our provider network. You have to be in network. If you're out of network, then it doesn't work. So what this means is that you're limited to who's on their list of providers. And for example, assisted living facilities. There's a dozen assisted living facilities on their provider list. They're fine and good facilities. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. Some of them are actually really very, very good. There's dementia-specific care provided on that list. So it's not like you can't get the care you need. The problem is you can't get the care you need in the assisted living facility next to your house. You might have to drive a couple of miles in Pinellas County to go to the one that's on the list. Okay, I don't think that's a huge deal. The other issue is when it comes to your doctors. Your doctors need to be on that provider list as well. So if you're going to see Dr. Smith may not be on that provider list. You may have to switch to Dr. Jones. Okay, well, is it worth it? Yeah, they're paying for all the cost of your medical care. They're paying for all the cost of your prescriptions. They're paying for your cost of your home care. They're paying for basically all the cost of your assisted living. They'll take you all the way to the nursing home as well and pay for that as well. They'll follow you the entire journey. You just have to start when you're in a home setting. And that's I guess the one catch. So
yeah,
there you go. That's PACE.
Somebody just said, oh my goodness, I'm taking so many notes. I can't stop writing. I want to remind everybody.
My head's going. Aren't we recording this, Linda? I mean,
Yes,
can't we
I
come
want to
back and
remind every
listen to
single
this
person
again?
that is watching right now, as long as you have registered for the conference, you will receive 21 videos of the conference within 30 days. So you can watch it again, you can pause it, you can fast forward it, you can show it to your mother, your brother, or whoever else you need.
You can put it on your big screen at home.
Yeah. Yes, you could. Someone else asks, is your book specific to Florida? I would think so.
Generally, it's specific. The specifics that are in there are Florida. However, the spirit of the book is basically all 50 states. So the idea of why you're doing this, the things that can be done, that there are solutions that are here, encouraging you to seek out advice in order to solve the particulars of your situation. That applies in all 50 states. But when we start talking about income and assets, that's kind of specific to Florida. Also, footnote. The book was written a couple of years ago, so the numbers have changed because they change every year. So you can go to our website. We also have an errata sheet that we have here. I don't know. We'll talk later. I'm trying to get a Google Drive folder set up so I can put some materials in there for you guys, including the book and all this.
Well,
the latest
it's a free download, so it's worth it.
Yeah,
it's free download.
Yeah, you can't beat the price.
Yeah. So, Sean, what's the last thing you want our listeners to hear today?
Well, I think the last thing that I want you to hear is this. Being a caregiver is fraught with so many uncertainties and unknowns. I deal with my people like 5 or 6 caregivers a day.
Yeah.
I have really good insight into this. And the problem that I see a lot of times is that the problem of overwhelm. There are just so many things now that you never thought you had to deal with. And so many new problems that you have to figure out solutions for. And how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? A lot of times you're singular, you think you're the only person that can take care of all these things. And how are you going to do it? It can be unbelievably overwhelming. The thing I want you to know is that in this particular aspect of your caregiving journey, there are solutions where you don't have to figure it out. There's somebody that can help you do that. And this financing, how are we going to pay for it? What's when, where, and how do we place? There are people that can help you do that. You're not alone.
Fabulous.
And we can help.
Thank you, Sean. If anybody after this is thinking of other questions today, Sean will be on my radio show this Friday. He's on usually the first Friday of every month. And please feel free to just call in with any questions, because that's what happens. About 2 hours later, you go, oops, I should have
Yeah,
asked.
of course. We're always here to help, Linda. And also I guess one last thing, with regards to coming to see me, we do something I think that's pretty unique in the community at this stage of the game, is that we always offer this free consultation thing. I know it sounds weird, but if you have a problem, or you think you have a problem, or you want to have that power of attorney reviewed, for example, get on my schedule, sit down, we'll talk face to face, and it's not going to cost you anything.
And Sean, let's just mention one more thing, because we have a lot of people on here from Florida, but also other states. If you move to Florida from another state, you need to have your documents reviewed, right?
Yeah, I think you should, if you're staying in this jurisdiction, the rule of thumb, the best practice is to localize your documents to the jurisdiction that you're in.
Okay. Thank you, my friend. I'll see you on Friday.
All right, nice talking to you guys. Have a great
Have
day.
a delicious day. I love when Sean is on, because he always has so much fabulous information for all of us. Let me start my video. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I love having Sean on because he's got such great information. So please take advantage of the things that he told you about. You have his phone number. If you're not in the state of Florida, you can still download his book to get that basis for yourself, and then contact someone in your area. But the documents are important, and so many of us don't want to do it. I get it. But you know what happens? You just think about doing it, and you just think about it, and you think about it, and you lose sleep over it. So just do it. It won't be a problem.
Are you getting older, or are you taking care of somebody who is? You know, getting older creates new problems you probably never imagined. One of the big ones is, how do you pay for care? Care in your home, care in an assisted living facility, or care in a nursing home. Did you know that nursing home care in our community can cost up to $12,000 per month? For the last 33 years, our office has helped families access benefits including Medicaid, VA, and PACE to help pay for the cost of long-term care. Regardless of what your assets are or what your income is, you can qualify for these benefits. Proper planning and guidance are absolutely necessary to avoid being wiped out. Let us help. If you are in care or heading in that direction, we can help solve that problem. Take action now to obtain benefits to pay for the cost of care. Here are the 4 things that you need to do. 1, get a new power of attorney. Your old one probably isn't good enough. Get a healthcare surrogate and a living will. 3, get an estate plan that will not disqualify you from benefits. And 4, get a plan to qualify for Medicaid, PACE, or VA benefits to pay for the long-term care costs. Call us today for a free consultation, 727-539-0181, or go to flmedicaid.com and download our free book on Medicaid and planning for long-term care. I'm Sean Scott. I'm here to help.